Why, hello there, and welcome to our free first Monday's Magic with myself, Stephanie Benedetto, and Tom Maddox, the wonderful, the one and only. And today, as I was reflecting on what might be kind of fun to explore, it came to me the magic of now, the magic of what's emerging now. And so this is going to be our last Magic Mondays call for a while, at least for the summer. And in September, we're going to come back and do something different. And there are a lot of things that are looking like they might be ready for a bit of a change or a bit of something different in my life right now and in business. And what's interesting is that it's not because I'm dissatisfied. It's not because there's anything wrong. It's just because something is emerging now that's different than what was happening before. And I think that a lot of times, I'll speak for myself, maybe you've found this also, that I was really good at just doing what I've been doing, the way I've been doing them. It's easy for me to go on autopilot and just keep doing something that's become familiar, that's become a habit, that's become a routine. And I'm seeing the wisdom lately of just taking a little bit of time off to reflect. And in that, there's also a celebration, there's an honoring of what was, even as we may make some changes to things that are emerging. Hopefully this doesn't sound like I'm being sad about it. Does this sound sad? I also felt like a little bit of sadness for a moment. And Tom's like, that's okay. Yeah,
Sadness is perfectly part of the whole thing. So,
oh, thank you. I like that
yeah.
too. I want to share an experience I had with a woman who I had a conversation with for the first time a couple weeks ago. And she started out with, she's like, I've got a lot on. I've got so many things going on. And for some reason, I was moved to ask her, what things? Tell me about them. And so she listed all the things. And there were, admittedly, a lot of things. And as we were talking, I had this image of her sitting on the floor, surrounded by all the things. It was almost like she was a small child. And like just picking up each one of the things and looking at it and just being with it and then putting it back down and just being with all the things to see what's calling her attention, what needs to shift, what wants to be in a different place, what is it time to let go of. And I really like that. I like that image. And it's what I'm going to be doing over these summer months. That's a metaphor for what I'll be doing. I don't think I'll actually be sitting with all the things, although you never know. And just sort of looking at each one and appreciating it and loving it and seeing what wants to happen with it now. This reminds me of Marie Kondo a little bit, who I've never watched, by the way. I've only ever heard things third hand, but she says, like, you take your thing and you put it in your hands and you say, does this spark joy? And if it's time to let it go because it doesn't spark joy, then you say thank you to it and you release it into the world. That's not what she says. Don't quote me. That's my third hand, fourth hand version of it. But I really like this. So I'm inviting you to begin, because at some point we'll open it up for you to share if you'd like, to begin reflecting on what are you noticing now? What are some of the things you'd really like to be grateful for, even if you notice they're shifting and changing? So that's a question for you to ponder. And in the meantime, Tom, what's sparking in you around this?
Yeah. No, that's great. Really appreciate that. And one of the things that just comes to mind that I sometimes share, because some people know, like, I paint, and my painting is very kind of wild and or calming, but very abstract, free form. And there was this beautiful woman who painted into her 90s, and her name was Agnes Martin, and she was interviewed. I'm not sure how old she was, but she might have been like into her 80s when they did the interview. And she was working every day on her paintings. And she said something really compelling to me, which was, she said, we have all these feelings inside of us. And she said, abstract feelings inside of us, but we don't pay any attention to them. Almost like the way I interpret it is because we don't have names for them. We don't know what they are. So when people do like paintings, like abstract paintings, a lot of times there's no form or recognizable form to it, but it still evokes a feeling. Sometimes a feeling is as amazing as something that's a painting that looks almost photographically realistic. And so that's just another reminder. I mean, so many people just like spiritual teachers of Steph and I were talking about this earlier from way back, and including Sid Banks is someone who we talk about a lot in the circle, would just say, look within. And I feel like that so many times I hear that, I'm like, yeah, I know, look within. Now, what else is there? And I'm just like what that artist said, like there's so much inside me that I have missed, all my life. And whether you call it a feeling or an experience or a sense or something, but there's always so much here. There's always so much here, and it's always available. And and life gets tricky and hard a lot of times, and it's not so easy to see it, but it is truly still there. So the magic, and that's what this meeting, the theme has been around the word magic. The magic, all kinds of magic tricks or magical things are inside of us. And wow, I never really knew until recently, and even now I wonder, like, how much do I really know what looking within really is? But man, it's been really just recently, and like right now as we're here, it's there. So that's kind of what I like to share. So thanks for the space and
Mm,
invitation, Steph.
I like that, Tom. And I'm feeling led to just take a moment for all of us. As you were talking, Tom, to me, you were pointing, and I started looking within as you were saying that. And it feels really nice.
Good.
And so I thought that it might be a nice invitation for all of us to just take a moment to do that. So if you like the idea of closing your eyes, you can, but you don't have to. This within we're talking about isn't actually inside of our bodies. That's a really beautiful metaphor within. It's actually before our bodies, before our minds, before the stories we make up about the world. So maybe you feel it as within, but it's a space. Maybe you feel it as before. Maybe you feel it as beneath, like what's underneath it all, like going deeper. Or you might even experience it as flying higher. Whatever way you experience it, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about dropping out of our everyday busy thinking and into this space that we call now. And you can find it just by feeling, just by noticing what's happening now, what you're noticing now. You might be noticing thoughts. You might be noticing sensations in your body. And if you just notice them as sensations or experiences without labeling them and relaxing into whatever it is you're noticing, that's now. You may notice a lot of space around it. And you might notice some busyness zipping through in the form of thinking or feeling or sensations. And if you don't have to do anything with any of it, and you're just noticing it, what do you notice? And I invite you to be still for a moment and listen. Listen and feel. And just notice what occurs to you. Can you feel what is happening you now? How life is quickening your being, your body, mind, the space that is you. And however you experience that, it's exactly perfect. There's no way to do it right or wrong. I notice in me that there are words that are somehow emerging from my mouth, not really from my mind, as sort of from this being. And I had some thoughts that I should be quiet. But that was a thought, and that wasn't actually, that was also emerging. That was also happening. And it had a different feel than being with the words. Feels really lovely to be with now, be with you. I invite you to stay here, stay connected with whatever this space you're experiencing may be. And notice if there's something emerging that you'd like to share. Perhaps it's something you're seeing fresh or noticing about now, or even a question that's coming up. Please feel free to unmute yourself, or if you want to make sure we can see you in an orderly manner, you're welcome to raise your digital hand by going to the reactions button on your screen. You're welcome. I'd love to hear from you and see what's happening now in conversation, perhaps.
I had a lot going on. And I actually got a lot of maybe not clarity, but the next clear on the next steps on a number of things that are going on here. So even though because I had thoughts of, oh, right, I'm supposed to be present here. And it's just like present to within, and I was. My within had it's like, oh wow, it was like my within said, finally you've shut up enough so I can let you know all these things I've been wanting to. So I'm going to take a few minutes and write down some of those things that kind of came up. So that's kind of came up. And in the before, what you were talking about in something new, and I said, oh yeah, a little bit of sadness, but before that there was the yay, something new, and whoo, taking summer off, wow. And then so there was like, it was a kaleidoscope of, which is delightful, really, because there's all of that in it when you allow it to just allow the thoughts to come and the feeling to come, and then the thought to go, and then the next one to come, and as long, so it felt like a kaleidoscope. It wasn't clunk, clunk. It was lovely. So
Hmm. I love that, Michaela. Yeah, and it's interesting. It often feels slower and often quieter than in my busy mind when I go to a space within or before. But sometimes it's very creative and there is a lot happening there, right? That's really cool to notice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also nice that, when we say this looking within, it's not looking for a particular experience. I mean, it might be really not only noisy, it might be really painful in there when you do that. And so um I don't think we ever want to like push anything away that's there because it's there. And at the same time, like for me, if it is something like I actually went through this yesterday where I had an encounter with a friend and I thought, oh my, I said the wrong thing, that kind of regret after talking to someone. And it was really active for quite a while, on and off. But there was also this looking within doesn't mean getting rid of necessarily. It might, but to me, the thing that's so helpful that either there can, in the midst of anything that's going on in there, there can also be like a feeling of spaciousness, which is really lovely, or sometimes a feeling of what I would just call safety, even in the midst of like some really bad things I'm thinking about or worry, especially for me. Like I can be worrying about something, and then the looking within is not trying to get rid of the worry necessarily. It might, but is to find out what else is there and to find out that I am safe in my worry. That can happen. That can just sort of spontaneously emerge, or maybe not, but there's often something more than the whatever we first shine the light on. So that's what came up for me.
I have never thought that before, Tom, being safe in my worry. And it feels really nice, like being cradled in a loving parent's arms or something. Like I'm safe in my worry. I can fuss and fret, and I'm okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
there's something that I feel like there's always something in us that's kind of at the very least it's able to bear and hold what we're experiencing if it's hard, and it's part of the same, like what we are. So yeah, I'm glad you had that experience because it's nice.
Hmm. Who else would like to share something? And a hello to everyone I didn't address already. Kate and Sean and Peter and Sam. I shall sing. I'll sing all your names. So there's an invitation to notice what you're seeing about now in this moment. When I'm in a group like this, it's like a laboratory for me sometimes to feel my way through, to feel what's happening, what wants to happen. And sometimes there's just, even if I'm supposedly leading a meeting or a gathering, there's nothing there sometimes. And it's kind of nice to know that that's okay. Like, I don't have to make there be something there, to notice when something is there. And it's, I heard someone describe this way of being as brailing our way through life. So braille is how people who aren't able to see with their eyes can read, by feeling these little bumps that convey messages. And that feels really like a beautiful metaphor for this. It's like looking with my eyes closed and sort of just feeling my way through in a nice way.
Okay, so there was something that showed up for me, and it actually has to do a little bit with what you were saying. So I thought I would add to that. But I was listening to a podcast that I actually don't remember what it was, but it may have been Dickin, at some point. And he was talking about how within the universe, only 4% is what we can see or interpret with 5 senses, maybe is a better way to say it, right? But 96% is something we can't interpret with our bodies. And I was just recording with Wynn, and he brought up a topic for a future recording. I don't think he'd care if I brought it up, but basically it was about how the idea for the podcast came to me, and I had met Wynn, and we're still really new in our friendship. And I suggested the podcast, and then we've been doing this for about 2 years now. And we had a guest on, and the guest said something, and one of the listeners was deeply touched by what that person said and brought it up in another group. And within that group, it broke something open within somebody. And then they talked about that and their experience and what it did for them, which then like saved somebody's life. Like they had hit a point and something that they had heard, and that person who had heard from that person, right? It's some kind of, it's like the ripple effects of kindness and insight. I don't know if I value the ripple that we can feel. More than the ripples that we can see and we can hear. I put a lot of value on the ones that show up in my, my human experience, my physical experience. But there's so much more at play in this world than I'll ever know. And that's so humbling and so beautiful. So, Steph, whatever you decide to do, like there's so much more done already than you can know. It's having some kind of ripple effect in this life that I don't know if it even matters sometimes, what you choose to play in, I don't know. It's just a good reminder that there's more at play than we can imagine. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. It does remind me of what Tom and I were talking about earlier today. And it strikes me as kind of funny because, man, can I overthink and overanalyze and try to get it right. And as we were talking about it, like the real truth is that each of us and every person we meet already has what they're looking for. Really, we have what we're looking for. And so, does it matter? I mean, big picture, you've already got it. There's nothing to do. There's nothing I can give you. You've got it. So the rest is just play. What games do you want to play? And there's a game of this now, emerging now, that to me is the best game I could ever want to play. And sometimes the game is being with something so that it reveals itself, because it's not always instantaneous. I mean, now is just now, but it's now is just now. And it's revealing itself in the apparent progression of time. And that's fun when I don't overthink it and I don't have a lot on it. It's just fun to see how it shifts from moment to moment. Just like Michaela was talking about the kaleidoscope inside. Kaleidoscope inside of us is moving and shifting and creating and being and breathing and living. What else? I'm curious. Does anyone have a question that's bubbling up? Or a something like, I'd like to see more about that.
I won't raise a hand, but I will unmute myself. And then everybody should duck.
Thank you for
I'm
the
ducking.
the
I'm
warning.
ducking too. Yeah. Uh, the I said, you all play such a rugged game, and it's like, what's up now? Like, grr, grr. Okay. Yeah. What I know, it's the invitation for a long time, for years and months and weeks and such, has been it was the very first description, and I didn't even know it was a description of the three principles when it was being given to me, and just a new acquaintance, psychologist, saying, yeah, I was at this training outside of Miami given by Roger and Ricky Suarez. And they talked to me for about 15 minutes, and then they said, you should just go to the beach and relax. And I went to the beach for a few hours and came back. They talked for me about 15, 20 minutes, and they said, you should go to the beach and relax. I bet you can't see how this story is going to keep going, can you? Yeah. At any rate, 5 or 6 days later, on the last afternoon, my friend, Dr. Lieberman, finally relaxed. It came back to check with Roger and Rick to see, have I got it? I was like, yeah. So sometimes I can't tell who or what is walking past my yard. I've met up with at least 4 bears. Just yesterday afternoon, met up with 4 bears. They'll bring you into the now. And furthermore, I think they're on the side of the three principles, because it's like everything I've heard and experienced with bears is, if you slow down, there's no problem. That's, and it just occurred to me today, I often try to set a timer when I'm listening to the radio or even a recorded book or something, because as neutral as a lot of that information is, as fascinating as it is, it's still very linear for me. And it gets me into my linearity, and I'm like, I'm stuck forever. This three principles thing's not true. Thinking goes on forever. Creates its own separate world. I'm lost. That kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I realized, I need to just set the timer to spend a little bit more time just with bringing out the the tonnage from the refrigerator and making a fresh looking breakfast out of it. Just doing that quietly. Setting the timer for that, because I get to be present. It's not absolutely saint-like, sometimes, but not all the time. So yeah, that's really what I know, and the field that it's dawned on me that I can practice in this field, because it feels like a kind of a fun one to practice with, energetically. There's I'll bet most of you guys have even done this, which is the Gabriel Roth 5 rhythms ecstatic dance kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, you would be very surprised that the most liberal city in Western North Carolina, Asheville, has a Sunday morning dance with 2 waves, and then a Wednesday early evening dance, and then a Friday evening dance. I know you'd be very surprised to hear that, but I decided, some friends just kind of invited me once more. I've been dancing regularly with them for 20 years, about every 6 to 8 months. And it just felt like this was the time. And my ego has always gone with me pretty much everywhere I ever showed up. And it works and it doesn't. And when you got some people who are really trying to hold a really safe circle and not trying to let the Asheville Movement Collective become a pickup bar, it's like, wow, what a cool thing to just say, all right, I'll use everything I've got to pull out of hard focus. There goes soft focus. Maybe notice everybody in the room with peripheral vision. Kind of focus more on their feet. The feet was a real winner for me the last few times. Like, if feet can make me happy, there's just a happiness that goes throughout my whole body and just radiates. And it's easier to pick up smiles from other people. That's the sort of pickup we should be doing. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing was sensing energy as it was given to me. And like, sometimes I just sense the general group, and other times, Friday night, I happen to be next to this person. It's like, oh my God, their energy was huge. We're dancing in a big gymnasium, and his energy felt like it was filling this whole big room. Like, wow. It's neat to begin to find that out about people. We do have different energies. I mean, I've been open to that for years and years. But I'm just saying, just come into the now and try to do soft focus as much as possible, try to pick up things with other senses. It's really lovely when, even before I open my mouth, I've already got some attention, some awareness located in some place that my ego just doesn't know how, doesn't already have an established, fortress. It's really nice to have that, so that whatever the beginning conversation or conversations might be, there's already something there. That's just one way to talk about something that's already there, even before you get there. Yeah. Well, those are some of the things that I've been playing with. Yeah. And with a sense of, oh, I'm not expecting the world to totally disintegrate in the next few months. That's Pollyanna-ish me, but and the sense that I might have a little time to just sort of sink in and hang out in this space, and be able to move with a lot of people picking up a lot of things that I just never really relaxed into, really explored with all the senses, the other senses, stuff like that. So, and that's becoming a bit more of a it's a template for the groups that I think are having more problems, that I'm the other groups I'm part of that are having more problems. Like, well, let's start with a group that's kind of got it going. and I just keep that space open with the other groups too. Yeah. That's what's coming to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. I love that image of you enjoying feet. And what I hear such creativity and curiosity in the ways it's occurring to you to show up with all the things that you haven't been seeing that are there to be experienced, like the space of what we don't yet know. Maybe we can't know, the unknown even, but certainly what we haven't yet seen. And what you started with reminded me of a few weeks back, I was at a spiritual retreat. And at the end of these retreats, a lot of the attendees are often anxiously asking the question, how do I hang on to this? How do I go home and take this with me? I don't want to leave it here. And this was asked of the woman who was leading the retreat. And I watched her and her answer. At first, it looked to me, this is my story, like she was thinking about it. And then all of a sudden she went, oh, I have the answer. And she said, here's what you can do to take this with you. Relax. That always helps. Just relax. Hmm. What else is bubbling? What else are you noticing? Seem like we have to have something good to share or something insightful. It's kind of a funny thought. I noticed, I'll just tell you this, I noticed like, oh, is there too much silence? Should I be doing something? Like, hey there, little thoughts. That one seems to float through a lot, by the way, especially when I'm settling down with somebody and it's feeling really nice in the context of doing something, creating something, which I love to be in. And yet, the quiet and the settling down and the nothing feels so fertile, just rich and fertile, that this is where all of that comes from. Hmm.
This came up when Peter was talking about being in the room of dance and noticing this person with this huge energy, this presence that filled the room. And where my mind went was, wow, I wonder what state Peter was in to have picked up on that, because it had to have been similar to be able to feel, to resonate, to notice that feeling. And I was just wondering about what was really being filled, the room or Peter. So talking about things that was what came up. And then of course it went into, other, and then it went how things go.
I love that wondering.
Well, I actually had on a white lab coat and a stethoscope. So I was just trying to be really neutral. Yeah. Just so you know. And the person who had this measurably huge field, she was not the usual suspect. She wasn't 6'6" tall and a linebacker. Like, but thanks for wondering. Yeah, I do too. I do too. Yeah, about everything you said. Yeah, thanks.
It has occurred to me that in order for me to see something and experience something out in the world, it has to be happening in me. Because that's where everything is happening. Look at how Michaela and Peter are having a conversation without words. But that's really beautiful, especially when I bring my attention to the people and the energies and the things that sometimes I wish I was or had more of or think that I am not. I'm like, oh yes, those two. Those two. Maybe even especially.
Hi there. Um, Towards the end of Peter's sharing, I just started writing notes of just different pieces of these shares that I've been hearing that stood out to me. And just they're feeling like, it feels like there's themes in here and wanting to look back at what I saw. And there's a lot of spaciousness in this theme of now. And that feels really integral towards, I guess, one way of experiencing the now. There's lots of ways that we experience our nows. Everything that we do, we're in a now. And then, Steph, when you were reflecting back what Peter said, you said the space of what we don't yet know, what we haven't yet seen. And that felt like it was just carrying through all these threads. I mean, I don't know what was shared before I joined the call, but back to what Kate was talking about with that she had heard the quote that we only have the sense ability to experience 4% of the universe, and there's way, way more than what we can't even perceive or receive with our body. And so the spaciousness of the now, of allowing the quiet, of turning off the radio or the book, of being slow like the bear to just be in this moment, and instead of like putting out our agenda of what we want to create or make, or this pressure of feeling like we have to do a thing, there's quiet, there's maybe silence, whatever comes up in that quiet, that spaciousness, where we can be present for what we haven't yet seen, what we don't yet know. Because how are we going to see or experience that if we're not giving that opportunity to be with the unknown, with the quiet? If we're always putting out a data or receiving a specific data, being slow. And I was really struck by how much senses were coming up. Our body's many senses and modes of receiving. And that's really interesting to me. As I don't know, I think I, as someone who sees with my eyes, can default to a lot of that. And so it makes me feel like I want to play with the idea of just taking time to tune into my different senses, and maybe tuning out one, closing my eyes so I can focus more on another one and allow the full me to experience the now, by creating that quiet. So I'll quiet my eyes so I can tune into my nose. Peter, I don't know what you were meaning by duck, but I also really enjoyed that. And that other image of a now experience, when like something suddenly is there and you're in that now moment and there's a reaction. And this idea of an emergent now, in your imagery, Steph, of that rich and fertileness of silence, of quiet, of spaciousness and settling. That makes me think of like deep, dark earth and that quietness. And from that winter time, we can emerge into a spring. That emergent now. I wrote experiencing the what isness. So yeah, letting things unfold, not having our answers, being with mystery. That's what I'm receiving. I've really enjoyed just each share, just getting to hear and listen and be present with what's being shared and present with how that feels with me. Thank you for everybody for your sharings.
Sounds like the stuff of poetry.
Yeah.
That's what I was hearing.
And this we started this meeting with an invitation to just look within, whatever that means to you, right? And the thing about it is, like, we don't need invitations like this. It just happens all day long. We get invited. And what I feel or have experienced, or maybe just believe, is that when we hear that invitation and we just accept it, just even a little bit, I just feel like it orients us toward that. Like if we just enjoy or feel something, whatever, enjoy that experience of quiet or looking within, or feeling okay in the midst of turbulence, that is actually maybe the one thing you know, Steph was talking about, well, how do you carry this into the future? You know, from that retreat. Well, I do think the one thing that we can do is enjoy it when it happens, and then we're just sort of primed and oriented for it happening more and more. I do think that has been my experience over the past couple of years. So it's also kind of like it's free, it's easy, you know, and it's almost like our wisdom knows when it's time. It kind of just taps us on the shoulder. Hey, relax, look within, take a moment. So I think that's just really hopeful that this, whatever the riches that are in us, will kind of call out to us, basically, or whisper, or tap us on the shoulder, or knock us over, maybe, if that's what we need. So it's really, it's just such a delightful thing to not only experience, but also ponder a little bit about how it's got us, it's got our back, and it's got our future. Like it has our future.
It has our future.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I want to end with a question for you that I was asked last week. This is a question for each person here. I was asked the question, what is the dream you have not yet dreamt? And I was like, what? How could I tell you the answer to that question when I haven't dreamt it yet? Which was the beautiful thing about it. The dream I have not yet dreamt cannot be spoken. It can only be dreamed in the moment it arrives. What is the dream I have not yet? And there's something beautiful to me about the energy of it. I'm curious where it might land with you. So I'll leave it with you and see if something springs up from the fertile void of that question, or if you go, what the hell was Stephanie talking about? Oh, Xander, we're about to end, and I'm sorry. It's wonderful to see you. But...
Yeah, I know. Hello and goodbye. It's goodbye. It's hello from him and goodbye from me. What is that? Is that the used to say? Anyway, I'm getting mixed.
Well, you came.
The two Ronnies used to say it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from him. Anyway, yeah.
Well, you got actually the best 30 seconds of this call. So
I was trying to get back in order to be here, but I missed it completely, and that's my alarm to say that I'm too late.
Oh, you are here now, Xander. Be here.
Well,
oh. Ooh. All right. Yeah. All right, my lovelies. We shall see you again. Until the next time.
So much. Bye.
I'll catch the replay. Bye.